Welcome to the High Value Sales Show of Eversprint.com. I'm Malcolm Louie, the managing member of Eversprint, and today we're speaking with Thad Bench, the CEO of Benchworks, a fully integrated life sciences commercialization partner. Welcome to the call, Thad.
Malcolm, thank you very much for having me.
Thad, you grew your company's revenue from $8 million in 2014 to $42.4 million in 2017, a 428% increase. And in 2018, you hit around 68 million. Before we talk about how you grew your company so fast, can you briefly share what your company does beyond my quick intro and how your company differs from the competition?
Malcolm, I'm pleased to. Benchworks is comprised of a number of different business units. The oldest or legacy business unit that we have is an advertising agency, which is a fully integrated agency geared to supporting principally life science clients. We do work both on the healthcare professional and the direct-to-consumer side, about a 50-50 split between traditional media and digital. About 4 years ago, we decided that we were really anxious to expand our footprint and our commitment to the life sciences. And as fate would have it, a company called Safe Chain Solutions contacted us to do some third-party logistics support work, sending out basically marketing collateral to some of our life science clients. Young company based close to us here in Maryland. And during the course of that conversation, the owner of the business at the time, Charles Boyd, mentioned to me that they had the licenses to distribute pharmaceutical drugs in 3 states. And he noticed that we did a lot of work with pharmaceutical companies. So that intrigued me. And in the course of our ongoing conversations, I asked Charlie, I said, geez, what would it cost to get licenses in all 50 states? And that actually aligned well with our resources. And so I entered into a conversation with Charlie as a young entrepreneur that perhaps it would be best if we all aligned, and we ended up acquiring that business 4 years ago and have grown it very considerably. That business today is in the business of selling ethical drugs to hospitals and to independent pharmacies.
All right, fantastic. So it sounds like you really don't have competition because you're a very unique firm. Do you agree with that, or are there other companies that have an advertising marketing component plus a pharma distribution side of things?
Yeah, that combination is a little bit unusual, but in their independent sectors, in the agency business and also in the pharmaceutical distribution business, there is a ton of competition. And with both businesses, we try to differentiate ourselves by a very, very high level of customer service, value, very strict adherence to corporate governance and the regulatory environment. And then actually something that sounds like a bit of a soft issues piece, but something called graciousness. And obviously you're familiar with the term, but it's unusual to hear it in a business context. But we very much value graciousness as a core component to our culture. And we know that if in a business environment, if you treat your colleagues with a lot of respect and frankly graciousness, that they'll proffer up ideas that maybe be more forward-leaning than what they otherwise would in a more abrupt environment. And that's where a lot of our great ideas come from. And also with our clients, they really appreciate being treated with that level of respect. And you can do all of this and still have rigor. I mean, I think that's one of the things that we'd like to point out. We talk about this, but it doesn't mean that we can't have a spirited conversation or disagree. There's just a way to communicate to keep things civilized. And we think it's an important part of our business.
So would you say from a driver perspective, of the 3 biggest drivers of your sales growth, notwithstanding the acquisition of the Safe Chain business, which of course made it all happen, but in terms of driving the growth of sales between each of your 2 units, is the concept of graciousness the biggest driver of the 3?
No, I think it's important. But I think that ultimately, like all businesses, it's really the blocking and tackling, and you've got that. Maybe that's the table stakes these days. But obviously, we live and compete in a global environment now, and people expect world class service, value, and execution. And I think ultimately, all of us are measured in that same capacity now. So while the concept of graciousness and that culture I talk about is important, and where that's important is customer retention, employee retention, and it certainly helps a lot. But that without the other fundamentals wouldn't get us where we are today. You have to have that basic blocking and tackling down pat.
Okay. Can you maybe elaborate or maybe uh, list out what you think were the top three drivers of your sales growth over the past few years?
Absolutely. First of all, I'm a firm believer in surrounding myself with giants, and what I mean by that is hiring and recruiting people that are tops in their field, and better than I am in many aspects of the business. So Melissa Johnston, who is the president of Benchworks, has been with me for 15 years, and she's just an incredibly well organized and effective executive, and she's built out a team that mirrors that. And so it's really about the people. Same thing holds true on the Safe Chain Solutions side. Charles and Pat Boyd, the founders, have done a superb job of growing the business, and that we give them some more resources. We've also taken a board member of ours who's taken an active role, a fellow by the name of Tony Berger, who's brought in a lot of corporate experience to come down and help make sure that the Boyds are getting what they need to grow the business. So ultimately, what drives success, I think, at any business ultimately is your people, and then that coupled with the competitive pricing and the quality of execution. But in the end of the day, our people are our most important product.
Right. Okay. And so would you say number two would be competitive pricing and quality of execution, or are those given and there were two other big drivers of your
No, I
business?
think that's important. For the agency business, the particularly in the market that we are involved in, the life sciences are under a lot of commercial pressure. So there is a need and a desire in the marketplace for unique solutions and truly novel ways to go to market. And so my view is to really embrace innovation as much as we can. And I think that's an overused term to a certain extent, but we really believe in it. So I think that every day we come to the bit to our workplace, and whether it's at SafeChain or at the Benchworks agency business, and I spend a lot of my time exploring new and novel ways that we can help our customers achieve their commercial goals, whether it's embracing new technology, a new distribution channel, or just a new way to communicate with their clients. So that's a big important part of how we differentiate.
Okay. So number two would be innovation along
Yes.
the entire spectrum of the services you offer, from marketing to distribution to tech. Is there a
Yep.
is there a number three driver?
Yeah, and I think that the number three for us, frankly, is particularly on the pharmaceutical drug distribution side, was taking a novel approach to some of the independent pharmacies that we do business with. As we've grown and we've uh, reinforced our balance sheet, we've had the capacity to extend credit to some of the smaller pharmacies and pharmaceutical chains, and we're very careful about that. Obviously, we want to mitigate downside risk, but treating customers like customers, the great big guys, particularly in the pharmaceutical drug distribution business, if you're not buying as an independent pharmacy $50,000 a month, you really don't get a lot of attention, and you certainly don't get terms. And that's something that we are willing to do. And so there are some basic business rules that we've implemented carefully to give us a competitive advantage. And it turns out there are thousands of these types of pharmacies and even small hospital chains that we do business with in that regard.
So you're saying that there would be thousands of independent pharmacies and smaller hospital chains that, because they're not that big, because they're not buying over $50,000 of drugs every month, that other distributors don't extend them terms,
Correct.
let alone do business with them. But you were able
Yep.
to identify them, find out the ones who have the credit worthiness for you to extend the terms to them, and you've captured that market essentially.
That's correct. So it's really a channel niche play, and it's proven to be very successful for us.
Nice. Great, fantastic. Can we talk a little bit more about each of these three then?
Sure.
So just to recap, just make sure I'm on the same page with you. The three biggest drivers of your sales growth in general across your business lines. One, surrounding yourself with giants, people who are more skilled with you, have the expertise beyond what you currently have to help them run and build your business. Two, being innovative across your entire business line, from tech, distribution, all the way down to marketing. And then three, at least on the pharma drug side, taking a novel, innovative approach. And in this particular case, you're able to find a particular niche that was being underserved, and you found a way to serve them and make it work. Sound right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, great. In regards to surrounding yourself with giants, how do you identify what you're lacking or what your team or business is lacking, and then saying, yeah, we need to find someone who can handle this for us?
Sure, that's an ongoing challenge. I mean, all of us, and I think many of the folks that'll be listening to this, we realize that we're in a dynamic commercial phase. Things are changing all the time, so you have to be nimble. You have to be looking at the marketplace, what the competitive pressures are, listening to your customers, what they really want. So we try to align the people that we hire with those opportunities. So obviously we live in a digital world now. So on the agency side, we're very keen to make sure that we stay current with all things digital, and that requires a significant amount of human capital. And to that end, I mentioned earlier in our conversation that we are headquartered in Maryland, but we also have opened up a facility, an office in downtown Philadelphia, principally to get access to a much larger employee pool, particularly ones with the specific skill sets required for this digital world that we're living in. So obviously you've got to kind of fish where the fish are to get those folks in the queue, and then provide them with a very competitive pay structure and perhaps and benefits and environment. But I think more importantly, we're talking about getting these folks on board, giving them the authority to make decisions. I think that people are much more likely to stay and feel very good about their jobs if they've got the authority to make decisions, and that makes for a much higher quality work experience.
Right, definitely. How about for number two, being innovative? How do you become innovative?
Yeah, so that's interesting. To that end, actually, on the agency side, we actually hosted an innovation council where we showcased innovative technology platforms that we identified and curated, and invited our customers and our prospects. And it was the purest form of innovation in that the presenters didn't pay to be there, and the attendees didn't pay to be there either, where they were other customers or prospects. And we wanted to elevate our brand and share this thought leadership in our industry, and to really sort of let people know that that's something that we're very much committed to. And what go on just for a moment more on that theme, what happened that really prompted me to think about this a lot more seriously on the agency side in particular, is that I recently had recently over a year ago, was supposed to be going to New York, and the meeting got canceled unexpectedly, very early in the morning. And of course, you go through that sort of emotional roller coaster of, gee, I was excited to go, and now it's going to have to be rescheduled, and you're disappointed. And then you go through that period of elation of like, geez, I have a whole day ahead of me that with nothing scheduled. So how am I going to fill it? And one of the things that I did is I did sort of an exhaustive um, examination of agencies that were a bit bigger than we were and somewhat smaller, that were oriented to our life science market, and realized we're all sort of saying the same thing over and over again, just different ways. And it occurred to me that we are really going to need to do better and to try to identify meaningful, useful technological solutions to help our customers grow their business. And I think that one of the responsibilities that in that regard that we have is not just to identify what the realm of the possible is, but to also act as a filter, because we are there's a lot of junk out there in this world, and so we don't want to say just because you can, you should. So part of our job was to filter out technologies that we think are maybe not as commercially applicable. So that's a big part of what we're doing, and I'll wrap on this thought with that. I would say within the next few years, we will be as much a technology company as we are a advertising agency because of the way the market's going.
Right. And for number three, the third driver you had in this particular case, you were talking more so on the agency side of your business,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess in a way it's a little bit similar to innovation, but at the same time it's related to identifying some opportunities, some underserved markets. How did you go about noticing that here is an opportunity for your company?
Well, I think it's funny. People say, "Well, geez, what was your strategy, and how did you go forward?" And I think that my entire career has been based on opportunistic um, uh, opportunities that we have executed against. And then what you do is you sort of invent a strategy that aligns with what you've done to make yourself look smart. So really, it to me, I have a litmus test that I look when I evaluate new opportunities. One is, do I understand it? Uh, After the second telling, if I don't understand a business model or a product line extension or service offering after two descriptions of it, then I probably won't execute against it. Maybe I'm not smart enough, or maybe it's just too complex. So that's just sort of a simple litmus test. Two, does it align with my capital stack? Do I have the necessary resources to execute on this new service offering or product line extension? And if it fails, can I fail safely? And I think that those three together have helped me identify opportunities to go for. And rest assured, we failed a lot, but that's all part of business. And if you fail safely, well, I view no harm, no foul. You've tried something, and hopefully along the course of time, mixed in with some of those more unfortunate experiments, there's some winners that help you grow your business.
Yeah, and some of those winners can be huge.
Yes, indeed.
I remember from my business school days, we had a case study on how Honda had developed the small engine motorcycle scooter market. We had two different case studies. One case study was, yeah, they had the foresight, they saw the opportunity, and they went into it. And then the other case study was, yeah, they had a shipment of these little motorcycles and it wasn't selling. They didn't know what to do. So they just started riding, the employees started riding around themselves in Los Angeles, and it became a big hit. And it just grew from there.
That's a great story.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting how kind of, like you say, right? They kind of stumbled upon it and they go, hey, let's take a look at this and scale it up further. And it worked out to be a huge winner for them, as it was for you in the, catering to the smaller hospitals and independent pharmacies.
Yes, indeed.
Yep. Can you share a little bit about what your plans are for 2019? I know that you've had some pretty fantastic growth so far, 8 million in 2014, all the way to 68 million in 2018, a large part of it coming from the pharma side. Maybe you could talk a little bit more about the pharma distribution side and the agency side and your plans for both.
Sure. So what we plan on doing is we are, and this is all kind of, we're like many entrepreneurs, we kind of build the plane as we fly it. But we are going to certainly stick to our core businesses that we have and make sure that we are don't take our eye off the ball there. But we are looking to expand our service offering, doing consultancy work with life science companies to help them commercialize their products. And eventually, look at a myriad other businesses. I think one of the things that I'm 58 years old. My son has joined the business about 3 years ago. A lot of folks always say, "Well, what's your exit strategy?" And I really don't have one. Mine is to continue to grow the business. If something happens along the way and there's a potential exit for one of the businesses, we certainly will evaluate that. But my view is that if you build a business that is profitable, holistically sound, has a good balance sheet, and is growing, that's a great business to own. It also happens to be the type of business that people want to buy. And so we're not looking for anything strategic, but we just want to continue to grow our business. And again, going back to that opportunistic strategy or mindset, as things present themselves, we will certainly evaluate them, and I'm quite confident we'll execute on some new things in the coming days.
Can you share what opportunities you see on the pharma distribution side and what opportunities you see on the agency side?
Sure. So I think and maybe this is getting a little granular to the industry for general listeners, but there's a lot of opportunity in rare disease, and obviously we're all familiar with the big blockbuster drugs, the Lipitor's and whatnot. But those are becoming, there's a saying that all the easy molecules have been discovered. And so we are focusing very heavily in just on the agency side on rare disease. And, sometimes the pharmaceutical industry takes a bad rap, and some of it's deserved, I might add. But there are amazing clinical things being done where small patient populations are being served with truly life-changing therapies, and we're very proud to be part of that. And I not to get philosophical here, but I look at this and I say, well, how did you spend your days? And I said, well, we develop educational materials for patients and for healthcare professionals to make good decisions of how to tackle tough diseases, and we also actually distribute the medicines that treat those diseases. So to me, that's time well spent. So I think we'll just continue to build on that platform and see where that leads us.
Now, is there a huge number of these rare diseases and rare pharma makers and clinicians that specialize in these rare diseases? I mean, do you know who they are?
There are. I think obviously we live in a agency, the information overload world. But if you just kind of shut out the white noise and took a look at what's going on in this space, this is a golden era of innovation, and there are literally hundreds and hundreds of these new therapies coming out. So it's very exciting, a terrific time to be in the life sciences, and we were very excited to be participating in it.
How do you find these opportunities, these therapies, to help the companies behind it commercialize them?
Yep. So we use databases. There's a firm called Global Data that it's an expensive database, but we subscribe to it, and it tracks every pharmaceutical asset in the United States. We can get it globally, but that's beyond our reach at the moment. So we track every pharmaceutical asset from phase 1 into phase 2 into phase 3, and it's really start communicating with companies as they get into phase 3 through non-personal promotion and good old-fashioned salesmanship. And I think, for all the technology that we have in this world and all the sophisticated marketing, at the end of the day, relationships still matter. We do have a field sales force. I still go out to this very day selling, and we put a lot of feet on the street and miles in our cars and airplanes going to visit clients, and then referrals. Of course, I think that's the gold standard when our clients refer us to others, or when executives go from one company to another. In many instances, they take us with them.
Right. Now, for 2019, can you share with us any of your financial targets, if comfortable with sharing?
Sure. Yep. So our board guidance, and we have an advisory board, not a fiduciary board. We're privately held. It's my family's business, but we hope to be in the mid 90s, about 95 million in revenue. So tantalizingly close to 100 million in revenue, which is far larger than I thought the company would ever get. So we're very excited about that. I think the thing that, as you mentioned, about some of the building blocks about the people and innovation and whatnot, in a niche sort of play, the absolutely essential component to this is having the necessary capital to execute this. And for many, many years, like many entrepreneurs, it was just a knife fight, working our way through cash flow crunches, and only in the past couple of years, due to enhanced profitability and aligning ourselves with some great commercial banks and capital partners, do we have the capacity to fund our growth where that has become less of a concern. So I think for all of us, Malcolm, I'm sure you would share this, that as people grow their businesses, it's great to get that business and to grow it. But the other integral part is you've got to have the capital stack to be able to execute and safely grow the business.
Right. So to go from 6 to 8 million in 2018 to a target of 95 million in 2019, that's a pretty chunky growth. That's about 50% roughly. What needs to happen for you to hit those targets?
Well, again, because of the size of the wholesale distribution business, it is just a gigantic business marketplace, and so there are many billions dollars worth of wholesale drugs distributed in the United States. So we have infinitesimal market share. So it's really just a function of us grabbing our natural market share. And in the way we do that is, again, blocking and tackling and an extremely high adherence to the regulatory environment and making sure that we deliver for our customers each and every day. But there are, and as we go, we're investing a lot of our earnings back into the business in the form of enhanced sales and marketing, more feet on the street and for our sales force. So we're really not, quote unquote, optimizing our earnings, where our earnings are strong, but we take a lot of our earnings, reinvest it back into the business in the form of enhanced sales and marketing. And we think that's going to help us with a lot of our growth.
What do you mean by enhanced sales and marketing?
Well, certainly, obviously, in the digital world, public relations, this interview, for instance, it's something that's important to do. And thank you very much for inviting me to share our story with you. But these types of things of casting a bigger shadow, so building brand awareness, is something that we're very committed to doing. And doing traditional media, a bit of advertising, again, but also digital PR, and influencer marketing. So we're trying to pull as many strategic levers as we can to raise awareness about the work that we're doing.
I didn't hear you mention any sort of outbound type marketing. I think most of these are more inbound like.
No, and forgive me, that's a good point. And we actually have a war room, is what we call it, where we have outbound marketing, and we have a 16-touch sales cycle where we put prospects into a funnel and write a letter to them initially saying that we're going to be reaching out to them via phone and email, and if they aren't comfortable with that, to please let us know. And I don't like surprises in my personal life or my professional life, so sending a letter first saying, look, we've identified you. We think you'd be a great prospect for us to do business with, and we'd like to reach out to you. And so if for whatever reason you don't think this is the appropriate time, or you simply don't want to, let us know. And then we begin that sales cycle, realizing that it takes a heck of a lot of touches before we get someone to respond yay or nay. And so they go through that cycle, and as that opt in, obviously they go into our more immediate CRM, and we try to execute and convert that into a customer. If they go through the entire 16 touch sales cycle without any sort of feedback, then we will put that particular company to the side and then re-engage again in a year's time. So that kind of is how we do that. So there's a systematic approach to this that we're finding to be constructive. But again, that is a function that would have been impossible for us just a few short years ago, because we were busy trying to make sure that we were making that month's revenue and didn't have the luxury of thinking about a pipeline that may take years to fill.
How long does it take typically to convert someone into a customer from the moment they say,
yeah. So of course it's all over the map. I mean, we all have those incredible eureka moments where all of a sudden a big customer it's inbound and reaches out and becomes immediate. But I would say well over a year. I can tell you that Pfizer Pharmaceuticals, which is one of our larger clients on the agency side, I called on them for 3 years before I got my first order. But so we sort of have a saying that guides us in our sales cycle, that if we're going to really go after a potential client, let's make sure that the view is worth the hike, and that that it's okay if we're going to expend these hard-won resources, that the opportunity, if it comes to fruition, will be worth it. So we qualify our leads and to make sure that we think they're quote unquote agency ready. Same thing on the pharmaceutical drug distribution side, that our potential clients have got the commercial velocity and fit the credit worthiness, and they have regulatory controls in place too. I think just a brief aside on that, a lot of our growth we handle every schedule drug in the that's available, and including pain-killing drugs, and there is a opioid epidemic in this country, and so it's something that we take very seriously, and there is a clinical need for some of these pain-killing drugs. If you are an oncology patient, or you are broke a leg, or whatever the case might be, these therapies can be very effective, but there's obviously is a serious addiction problem. So we have instituted 4-to-1 prescription ratio for an independent pharmacy to buy from us. If they buy a controlled substance, they have to, it's actually a pill count, for other prescriptions before we would refill another control, because unfortunately there are independent pharmacies that contribute to the opioid epidemic. They find a willing prescriber, and they just basically becomes a pill mill, and we don't want any part of that. And so it's a big part of our regulatory compliance piece. And I think that speaks volumes to people. And I think all of us, as we go through our business cycles, whatever the business is, a high level of professionalism and adherence to solid corporate governance makes people feel comfortable and engenders sales and customer loyalty.
Now, what would you think are your biggest marketing challenges? The ones that you need to overcome to get you to 95 million?
Yeah, so I would say the fact that even though we're getting a little bit of size to us, it's still in the overall scheme of things, a very small business. It's simply brand awareness, and I think one of the things that we all fight is we look at a prospect, and they may see a more entrenched or established vendor, and say, okay, well, this is safe for me. If I buy from that well-known vendor, I'm safe in case there's something going wrong. The old saying goes that no one ever got fired for buying from IBM. But for us, raising the brand awareness, getting more strategic, and again, having a little bit of size to us is making our ability to overcome some of these objections a lot easier.
What have you tried so far to expand your brand awareness, and how's that been working?
Going back to some of the, the PR, certainly we're beginning to publish white papers, industry awards. We're winning our fair share of industry awards in the marketplace. It certainly, I mentioned earlier in our conversation, the Innovation Council. We got a lot of good press from that on the agency side. SafeChain attends industry trade shows all over the country. And we now have offices and distribution operations, not only in Maryland, but in Kentucky, and also in St. George, Utah, as well as a sales office in Miami. So all of these regional facilities have their own footprint and marketing component that goes with them. So we're out there beating the bushes, trying to be as visible as we possibly can.
How are you measuring that those activities are creating the brand awareness that you're looking for?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Obviously, on some of the email blasts and things, we can see, who's opened and what they've done. Ultimately, and this is something on the agency side we talk to our clients about all the time. The litmus test is enhanced revenue. You know that it's working if your top line's going up, but we do track in our CRM. All the tactics that we're doing and monitor those. And so we can kind of see our conversion rate on some of our outbound marketing activities. I think we've got a long way to go, frankly. We're sort of like the cobbler whose children don't have shoes. It's only recently that we have had the commercial wherewithal to really invest in our own marketing. So it's evolving. And I think one of the things that I would just say to all the, to business folks that listen to this is that, look, you've got to be proud of the work that you're doing. And maybe it is not as fully baked or holistic as it will be at some time in the future, but do your best. Do what you can with the resources you have and just stay at it. And that persistence is a big part of it. And then, obviously you will achieve your goals if you just keep at it.
For the branding efforts that you've been doing so far, how do you assess if you were actually, notwithstanding seeing the revenue growth, of course, but before then, are you able to somehow track that you're really building awareness with the right people?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. Frankly, it's a hard question. We get that. Our clients ask that. We ask it of ourselves a lot. The reason that I don't have a pat answer for that is that, one, our internal marketing capacity is frankly a relatively recent addition to what we've been doing. I mean, heretofore, I mentioned opportunistic. It was a little scattershot. Now, with the development of the quote unquote war room, we're getting a lot more disciplined in our approach, so we can kind of see our outbound activity and sort of adjust our tactics. I think one of the things that's important is to make your outbound sales and marketing activity a horse race. And what I mean by that is that we, on certain targets, we will use A/B testing. We'll do messaging, one message to a target group of clients, same type of target group, but use different messaging, and see which one resonates more. So we're constantly turning the dial on the type of tactics that we use and the messaging that we use to see what's the most efficacious.
Right. Do you do a lot of segmentation as well? Because I imagine
we do a lot of segmentation, particularly in, again, disease state, where the customer is in their commercial cycle, the size of the business. All those things help us determine whether or not a potential client is a good fit for us and someone that we should really go after. As fate would have it, we still do a lot of business with very large pharmaceutical companies, but a lot of our new wins as of late have been with smaller ones because we fit very well from a value proposition. So we look at a number of different factors and, in fact, do segment the market as we
Are the
forward.
smaller pharmacy opportunities the ones that we talked about earlier, where they're too small to be noticed, to be given a lot of love from the bigger distributors, and hence you were able to step in and help them? Is that a significant part of your business?
Very significant part of the business. It is, and we do that. We reach out to them. We have some sales channel partners, contract sales organizations that we have hired to help us in our go-to-market, and then also we do attend a large number of industry events, trade shows, and to try to raise awareness. But there's a heck of a lot of just direct selling going on there, particularly for that market.
3 last questions for you. Say, in the Maryland area, when you're cruising down the freeway at 70 miles per hour, typically the billboards that are on the side of the road, you have 6 seconds to read them, see them, digest them. What would be Benchworks' 6-second billboard message?
Well, depending on business unit, because they're very different. But let's start with the agency, and I think the 6 seconds is creativity coupled with highly reliable execution, and that's really speaks to our core. On the pharmaceutical distribution side, I think again also we talk about execution, but we say execution and with where the patient comes first, and ultimately maintaining the chain of custody on all of the pharmaceutical drugs that we describe, all the safety factors that have to go in that. Ultimately, we know at the end of the day that there's a patient consuming these drugs that we're giving, and so everything we do is focused in on patient
How about
care.
If you had one billboard for your entire company, what would that 6-second message be?
We give a shit.
Actually, that would catch people's attention, I think.
No, and I say that I'm sorry to be a little off color, but we really do, and that the thing that we bring to our work every single day is a commitment to making sure that we do the very best work that we can, whether that means I'm working in one of our distribution operations and doing a pick and pack function, to high level data analytics or strategy or digital development, trying to do the best we can and not settling. Is if we get that right, the commercial results will take care of themselves. And I'm a big believer beyond that, maybe circling back to the very beginning of our conversation, talking about graciousness. If you get the culture right, if you get the right people in your organization and you get the culture right, the commercial results are going to take care of themselves.
Yeah, I agree with you on that point for sure. 2 last questions for you. Who are your ideal customers, and what's the best way for them to reach you?
Sure. So again, with the 2 different business units, starting with SafeChain, if hospitals are the pharmacies inside of a hospital are there's a surprising amount of inefficiency in the drug distribution business, so that would be a terrific client for us. Also, pharmacies, small chains, and independent pharmacies. On the agency side, and I mentioned this, that we're almost exclusively geared towards the life sciences. We still have a robust technology and beverage and hospitality practice, a general advertising. And it's interesting, we've said to ourselves, we just have to stay completely life sciences, but we enjoy and we're very good at general business and institutional advertising. So really, almost any business that needs to raise their brand and drive commercial results, we'd be a good fit.
And what's the best way for them to reach your team?
So if we go to our website, www.benchworks.com, that's the corporate headquarters site, and then we could certainly get you down to SafeChain, or if you Google SafeChain Solutions, headquartered in Cambridge, Maryland, they have their own independent website, and we'd be delighted to help anyone we can.
Solutions website is that the name of it? SafeChainSolutions.com.
Yep.
Okay.
SafeChainSolutions.com.
Awesome. Fantastic.
Yep.
Thanks so much, Thad, for sharing how you grew your company's sales so rapidly.
Malcolm, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you.
We've been speaking with Thad Bench, the CEO of Benchworks, about his company's rapid growth. For interviews with other fast-growing, high-value sales companies, or to learn how we can accelerate your firm's high-value sales through automation, visit eversprint.com.